I never planned honesty. It arrived bleeding suddenly. One night broke me. Silence finally screamed back. Everyone thinks I'm strong. They only see armor. They never saw wounds. They never asked why. I learned smiling professionally. Pain became background noise. Crying felt inefficient. So I swallowed storms. I mastered appearing okay. While collapsing internally, my laugh became disguise. My eyes learned lying. People love outcomes only. They hate unfinished humans. They praise survival stories, not survival processes. I was drowning quietly, still saving everyone else, holding hands while sinking, teaching hope while hopeless. No one noticed shaking because I stood straight. No one heard screaming because I whispered pain. I became emotionally efficient, reduced feelings into tasks, turned heartbreak into schedules, turned grief into productivity. But nights remain honest. They remove social filters. They replay unspoken conversations. They expose buried truths. That's when I remember everything I avoided, everything I postponed, everything I never healed. I remember childhood silences, rooms filled with tension, love measured by performance, affection earned, not given. I learned early lessons: be useful or invisible, be perfect or ignored, be quiet or punished. So I adapted quickly. Perfection became survival. Mistakes became threats. Feelings became liabilities. I outperformed emotions. I outworked fear. I overachieved approval. I underreceived love. Teachers praised discipline. Friends praised reliability. Family praised obedience. Nobody praised vulnerability. I grew successful externally, empty internally always. Climbing adders blindly, ignoring emotional fractures. People said inspirational things. They quoted my resilience. They envied my strength. They never saw cost. Strength costs softness. Strength costs rest. Strength costs innocence. Strength costs connection. I lost parts gradually, not suddenly, dramatically. Small disappearances matter. They accumulate silently, dangerously. I stopped asking help because answers disappointed. I stopped expecting understanding because misunderstanding felt safer. I became self-contained universe, orbiting nobody closely, protecting fragile inner core. From careless human gravity, I let people in, but never fully. I shared stories edited, truths diluted for comfort, because full truth scares. It demands responsibility. It demands presence. It demands emotional maturity. Most people want entertainment, not emotional labor. They want motivation quotes, not raw human complexity. So I packaged pain nicely, added hope filters, inserted lessons prematurely, skipped uncomfortable details. But healing doesn't skip. It demands full witnessing. It demands slow courage. It demands staying present. I avoided staying present because presence hurts initially. Absence numbs efficiently. Distraction works temporarily. Phones became anesthesia. Work became escape. Success became sedative. Busyness replaced peace. Yet emptiness grows louder. When ignored consistently, it demands acknowledgement eventually, or explodes destructively later. I felt explosion approaching, chest tightening regularly, thoughts spiraling nightly, breath shortening randomly. Still, I told everyone, I'm doing great, because honesty felt risky, and vulnerability felt expensive. I feared being burdened. I feared being abandoned. I feared being misunderstood. I feared being truly seen. Being seen means exposure. Exposure means possible rejection. Rejection reopens childhood wounds. Wounds I buried deep, so I smiled professionally, nodded appropriately, agreed excessively, disappeared emotionally. I became emotionally polite. Never too intense, never too needy, never too real. But politeness starves souls. It kills connection slowly. It replaces intimacy with manners. It replaces truth with comfort. Deep down I knew something was wrong, not dramatically broken, but quietly misaligned. Life looked successful, but felt hollow. Days passed efficiently. Nights felt endless. I achieved milestones publicly, but missed myself privately. Lost inner voice gradually. Traded intuition for approval. I stopped trusting feelings because logic felt safer. Logic doesn't abandon. Logic doesn't disappoint. But logic cannot hold a grieving heart. Logic cannot soothe an unloved inner child. That child still waits inside, quietly watching, wondering when safety arrives, wondering when love stays. I ignored that child because adulthood demanded performance, bills demanded productivity, society demanded strength. No one teaches healing. They teach coping only. They teach survival strategies, not emotional integration. So we survive brilliantly, but live poorly. We function impressively, but feel disconnected internally. I reached breaking moment, not loud. This is where truth stops being gentle completely. This is where healing stops sounding inspirational, because real healing hurts before it helps, and it dismantles identities built for survival. I realized something terrifying. I don't know myself. I know my masks. I know my performances. But underneath achievements, underneath discipline, underneath responsibility, there is confusion. I built life correctly, but felt incorrect inside. Followed rules precisely, ignored instincts consistently. Nobody warned me that success without alignment feels like suffocation. Inside golden cages, people clapped loudly while I felt emptier. Compliments echoed externally. Silence screamed internally. I began questioning everything. Career choices, especially relationship patterns repeatedly, motivations constantly. Was I chasing passion or running from fear? Was I helping people or avoiding my needs? I saw uncomfortable patterns. I overgive constantly. I overfunction emotionally. I underreceive consistently. I attract broken souls because I understand pain. I fix everyone except myself always. I confuse love with usefulness. I confuse loyalty with tolerance. I confuse patience with neglect. I confuse effort with worth. These confusions shaped me. They dictated relationships. They normalized emotional imbalance. They exhausted me slowly. I stayed where unloved because familiarity felt safe. I tolerated bare minimum because abandonment terrified me. I called it loyalty, but it was fear. Fear of starting over, fear of being alone. Loneliness haunted childhood, so I avoided it, even if it meant sharing space without connection. But loneliness with people hurts more deeply than solitude ever could. That truth broke me. I felt invisible together, more painful than alone, because at least solitude doesn't pretend caring. Pretending hurts most, because hope stays alive. Hope prolongs suffering. Hope delays exits. I held on to potential, imagined future versions, ignored present neglect, romanticized eventual change. But people rarely change without internal consequences, without accountability pressure, without self-awareness awakening. I sacrificed self-respect for imagined futures. I betrayed boundaries for temporary comfort. Each betrayal cost something. A little confidence lost, a little voice muted, a little clarity blurred, until one day I didn't recognize myself. Mirror reflected stranger with tired eyes. Those eyes had stories, untold painful stories, of staying too long, of forgiving too easily. I forgave before apologies. I understood before accountability. I empathized before protection. I healed others' bleeding, because empathy became reflex, a trauma survival skill, understanding danger early. To avoid punishment later, I learned reading rooms, reading tones, reading moods, before reading myself. Hyper-awareness saved childhood, but sabotaged adulthood, because I prioritize others before inner safety. I realized something else. Not everyone deserves access. Not everyone earns vulnerability. Not everyone values honesty. Some people consume kindness without responsibility. They take warmth without offering shelter, and I allowed it because boundaries felt cruel, because saying no triggered guilt reflexes. Guilt shaped my decisions more than desire, more than passion, more than self-respect. I felt guilty resting, guilty choosing myself, guilty disappointing others, guilty existing imperfectly. That guilt isn't mine. It was inherited, passed down silently through emotional conditioning. I was taught goodness means self-erasure, means constant availability, means endless sacrifice. But self-erasure isn't love. It's slow disappearance, and I was disappearing in front of everyone. Nobody noticed shrinking because I still performed, still delivered results, still showed reliability. Functioning hides suffering. Efficiency masks pain. Productivity disguises emptiness. Consistency conceals collapse. I collapsed privately, cried without sound, broke without witnesses, healed without applause, and something changed. During one quiet night, no breakdown theatrics, just clear decision. I cannot abandon myself to keep others comfortable. I cannot shrink anymore to fit unhealed spaces. That decision scared me because identity dissolves. When survival patterns end, unknown self emerges. Who am I? Without constant giving, without fixing everyone, without earning affection. Who remains? When performance stops, when masks drop, when silence speaks, I sat with discomfort, without distractions, without numbing habits, without external validation, and discomfort spoke loudly. It showed buried anger, grief I postponed, dreams I abandoned. I mourned versions that never lived fully, because responsibility came early and freedom came late. I mourned lost softness, lost playfulness, lost innocence, lost emotional safety. I allowed tears,